What's going on YouTube? How you doing? Today we'll be talking about red purple law and sequencing. In this video, we'll go over a bunch of different cards that you can run in law. But there are certain cards that you just want to make sure you're playing in the right order. And we'll be talking about order of attack, the order of summon, and Dawn management. All of these things are very important in law. But first, let's go over summoning order. When summoning in law, you always want to make sure that you're summoning the most optimal monster for the turn that you can, or even just making sure that you're using creatures like your blockers or your attackers so you can get the most advantage out of cards like this wire, for example. Using cards like this before you summon, it just gives you more advantage in your summon. In OP05, we actually get a lot of really great cards that just really help the deck out a whole heck of a lot. And one of those cards I'd like to talk about is Eustace Captain Kidd. Kidd's effect allows you to ramp one Dawn essentially whenever you minus a Dawn. This is very important because this means that you'll get one free Dawn after you minus Dawn. So you always want to keep that in mind and making sure that you're using that one free Dawn correctly. So when I speak on order of summonings and in regards to Kidd, let's just say that I have this law on the field and I've got a Kidd in my hand. I want to make sure that I get the most out of my law and my Kidd. So if I want to make sure I get the most out of my law, I always want to make sure that I have the least amount of Dawn in my opponent. If I don't have less Dawn in my opponent, then I'm kind of sort of in a bad position. We always want to keep in mind the amount of Dawn that you have. I always want to keep in mind your leader's ability. So with that being said, you want to make sure that you're, again, just choosing to do things in a very optimal order. This brings me to order of attack. When it comes to your order of attack, you always want to make sure that you're optimizing your attacks, aka using your Trafalgar Law. Now, the reason why I say you want to optimize your attacks when using your Trafalgar Law is because Law's effect only works when you have less Dawn than your opponent. If you don't have less Dawn than your opponent, then, well, you're not going to get the benefit of his effect. So you want to make sure that when you're attacking with your law, you're attacking in the right order. If you don't attack in the right order, you just won't get all of his benefits. And if you don't get all of his benefits, you just fall behind in the game. You don't want to fall behind the game. Cards like Beppo will Dawn ramp you. And you want to swing with cards like Beppo after you swing with cards like your law. Because if you swing with Beppo before you swing with your law and you increase your Dawn, then again, you'll lose the advantage of your law. You don't want to do that. Of course not. So when it comes to swinging, you always want to make sure that you're swinging correctly. Always swing with little units first and then swing with your bigger units, because when you have Dawn left over, you can surprise your opponent with what you're going to attack. The less they know, the better the game will go for you. So if you want to save your Dawn for heavier attacks later on, you should do that. And if you have enough life, you should just go ahead and swing with your blockers as well, because you're not always trying to defend your life. Sometimes you're just trying to go at your opponent's throat. And really, that's just an optimal play for you. And trying to make sure that happens means you have to worry about backswinging. Now, if you're in a situation to where you don't have many counter in hand and your opponent has a lot of counter in hand, then you always want to keep this in mind, because that means that you're not really going to be able to reach their life, especially if you don't have the counter power in your hand to be able to make getting to the life effective. Don't overuse your leader ability, as this can really cause you to be in a tough spot. As you can see, you don't have many Dawn. You don't have many ways to get past your opponent's huge hand, which means that you're just going to have to swing into creatures. This is the optimal time to swing into creatures, because you'll want to reduce your opponent's hand size so that later in the game you can try and get to their life. Let's talk about Dawn management. When it comes to red purple law, you're going to be minusing a lot of Dawn, and that's going to suck. So to alleviate that, you have all these Dawn ramping cards, which are going to help you keep up your Dawn so that you're not always in a bad position. And I know not having Dawn sucks. It really, really sucks. But you could also run more Dawn ramping cards such as these that you can get out of life, which can help you, again, ramp up your Dawn. Whenever you do have low Dawn, you want to make sure that you're not using cards that will minus your Dawn. If you get greedy, then, well, you're just going to be hurtful. But to recap, you should always be mindful of what you're summoning and the order in which you're summoning it so that you don't hurt yourself. You should always be mindful of your swings and the order of which you swing so that you get the most out of all of your swings and that you're not just losing things. And also, always manage your Dawn correctly. When you start to get greedy, you start to lose. That's it. Thanks for watching the video.